I don't know if anybody's read the book Who Moved My Cheese. It's really relevant to what we're going through in our industry at the moment in terms of that moving away from potentially quite a safety and comfort zone of what you do and actually exploring into those verticals that you can retrain in. And we're having a conversation earlier about, look, recruiters can recruit anything.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great interview ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for Tactical Tuesday, where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open up for Q&A, and other days we get a mic drop episode from Matt, where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. And as a reminder, if you like the content we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, so we recently held our first roadshow event in London, and with it, we had two goals for our attendees. One was to learn a thing or two that can help them or their business succeed, regardless of the tech that they're using, and two, to have some fun while they're there. So after receiving tons of feedback post-event, it's safe to say that it was a huge success on both of those fronts. And the main drivers for those were the two interactive panel discussions that we held as part of the event. And so today's episode is a recording of the first one that we held around the topic of expanding into other niches, and included an incredible panel such as Recruiting Brain Food's Hung Lee, Elamed CEO Elena Curia, and 830's Senior Managing Recruitment Consultant John Briginshaw. Absolutely phenomenal discussion between the four of us, and then we even opened it up for some live questions from the audience. One note, since this was a live recording, the audio quality is going to be a little bit lower than what you're used to from us as we were optimizing for the in-person experience, but I can promise you that this is a conversation well worth listening to. All right, let's jump in.
All right, so yeah, definitely grab food, grab drinks while you eat. This is very much just like cozy atmosphere, catch up. But we're gonna start our first panel on moving into other niches. So many people, when you signed up, I asked, what are you doing well? What are you struggling with? And business development was resounding. Everyone could use a little bit of help. So this first one is talking about how people have successfully moved into other niches and thought about it. So I've got these three great panelists. I'm gonna let each of you introduce yourselves. We've got a fun icebreaker, and then we'll get into just some good topic questions.
Cool.
So to start, let's just have each of you introduce yourself. So Ellen,
Sure. Hey, my name is John. So I work for 830, who is a tech and digital and data recruitment company. We're a small boutique company, so we've kind of grown from over the last 10 years up to about 16 people. And yeah, I've worked my way up from a delivery consultant to the leadership team as well. So great to meet you.
Hi everyone, I'm Elena Curia and I'm the founder and CEO of Elamed. So we specialise in medical devices, regulatory and quality, mainly Europe, but we're making a move towards the US, so we're really niche, to your point, and vertical. And we're a team of 10. I'm still actively doing recruitment myself, so still very hands-on. And that's me.
Hey everyone, I'm Hung. I used to be a recruiter and I still self-identify as one of you guys. So I did agency for about 10 years back in the day, did a lot of in-house stuff, launched my own tech company, and these days I do more like media, so I run a newsletter, podcast and stuff like this. So.
Now have you keep the mic, now the icebreaker.
Oh shit.
You can only keep one app on your phone. It's not text, it's not calls, not email. What is it?
One app on my phone. It is a webcam that I've got set up in my home. I've got a pet turtle. I've got to keep an eye on that guy. So yeah, I'll keep that.
Okay.
Oh my god, this is such a hard question.
I know.
One app on the phone that you can keep, the only one. Honestly, I know it's cliche, but I'm really using ChatGPT a lot right now. So I'm going to go with that.
Okay, perfect.
Difficult one. So I'm a bit of an amateur guitarist, and tuning my ear and guitar is pretty poor, so probably a guitar tuner.
Love it. All right, so I'm not sure which one of you wants to field this first one, but just moving into other niches, like what prompted you to start looking into that, exploring it? Was it by force of economic conditions? Was it something that as you grew the business you wanted to think about, or things that you've seen on your side? So anyone of you want to jump in?
Yeah, awesome. So a big driver for us is that we saw a big demand in some of the areas that we were recruiting in really dropping down. And we had to ask ourselves the question, actually, was it technically the vertical that we're recruiting in, or is it potentially actually the geographical area that we're focusing in as well? And for example, one of my key areas was enterprise tech support, and a lot of businesses were taking their teams from the UK and actually moving it into Eastern Europe and cheaper resources like Latin America and even India as well. So it prompted us to kind of think, well, look, we need to be ahead of the curve in terms of actually being prepared to potentially attack these other markets, so that we don't find ourselves in a position where, okay, there's not as much demand now, and to make sure our recruiters are adaptable, but also that we can keep our revenue streams up in that area as well.
So when it comes to like moving into other niches, I'm coming at it from a slightly different perspective. So because as a business, we're very, very vertical already as it is. But in terms of how we've diversified, it's been opening up other countries in particular. So actually having focuses in Switzerland, Germany, Benelux, France, the Nordics is a more recent one. And also diversifying in terms of the solutions that we offer. So historically, I'm a perm recruiter by background. I built the business basically as a perm recruitment business, but then it was also looking at opportunities of opening a contract desk, and more recently hiring a proper ex-consulting person who has now developed a consulting offering for us that leverages a lot of recruitment solutions, but actually the pricing model is just much more interesting than standard contract recruitment. And the things that prompted it were really going really deep in the industry for us, right? So it's like having conversations and looking at where are our clients going, what are they asking, similar to you, like where are they going, what are they asking about? And then also what allows us to scale quickly in terms of our offering to clients without having to build a whole new, brand new vertical. And so rather than opening up a whole new vertical and training the team in that way, we said, look, let's just add another headcount contract recruiter that does exactly what we do but on contract, so we can service both perm and contract. And then let's add somebody else who has that higher level kind of like consulting that can sell those bigger statements of work. And that's worked really well for us. So
yeah, I think these two more or less covered it. I mean, you look at switching niches, I've done it a couple of times before. They've always been driven by the market more than any strategic decision that I've made. That's not to say you shouldn't make strategic decisions. I think you can and should. But the reality is most of the time recruiters simply react to what the market's saying to you. So I remember, for instance, I'm old enough to remember like Web 1, early zeros where you're recruiting in that era, .com crash. It was like I was at that time digital recruiter, nothing happening, very similar to as it is now it seems. A lot of tech hiring is like wasn't as it was 2021, and we just segued into a lot of NHS tech recruitment there, so a lot of information analytics people and stuff like this. That was not strategic, but it turned out to be something that was a 3-4 year play for our business at the time. It was actually turned out quite lucrative. So I think something similar will happen for people here. In terms of how that might be useful, the useful tip I can give is to say just keep an eye on what is going to drive the demand in even a market that might be going down. So for instance, back in my day, there was a big government initiative called National Programme for IT, if anybody's old enough to remember that. It was the biggest sort of IT programme, I think, globally at one point. Obviously a complete fiasco, cost the country billions. However, by that government commitment, it's pretty clear that there's recruitment business there. So look at how terrible the UK is doing at certain things and understand where there may be a government commitment to get better at that. That's going to be a recruitment market.
Okay. So I know one of the hardest things is people look at other niches and they're like, I could do this, but I don't want to go full bore into it yet. Like, how did you all test or validate if the decision that you made was the right one for your organization?
Oh, thank you, sorry. I don't know if anybody's read the book Who Moved My Cheese at all, if anybody's seen that, but it's an amazing book. It's about £6 and it takes a couple of hours to read. But it's really relevant to what we're going through in our industry at the moment in terms of that, okay, moving away from potentially quite a safety and comfort zone of what you do and actually exploring into those verticals that you can retrain in. And we were having a conversation earlier about, look, recruiters can recruit anything. But I think the advice from our side, what we did was kind of go, well, okay, what verticals could potentially complement what we're doing at the moment, and how we can, not so much a complete, left shift, but actually, okay, could we, look at those trending markets within our industry and seeing what companies are getting backed and that investment to actually go, well, actually, we're doing something similar at the moment, or there is slight crossover. It's less scary. With an example from our side is, we do a lot of IT infrastructure and cloud. Cybersecurity, there is a lot of crossover. It's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of technology and people that want to break into that market. And I think candidates and clients are your best tools to be able to go, what companies do they want to work for? What technologies are they wanting to gain experience in, and what are they, excited about, and what are their customers demanding of them as well. So I think they're your biggest asset as well, to kind of work out where's the industry going and what areas you can use. And that's what we did.
Okay, I like it.
I think if anyone's thinking about, is the mic on? Oh, sorry. I speak loud anyway. If anyone's thinking about doing this, I would say the mistake that we've made historically, that I'm very cognizant of now when we ever look at testing new markets or skills, I would say, is don't spend too much time researching, because you end up going into a rabbit hole of just theoretical knowledge without actually doing any practical recruitment. So what's worked well for us is if we have a hypothesis of, okay, this might be a new skill, and we have a candidate, we're in a very candidate-led market often. So we talk about speccing candidates, you probably all know what we mean. So we don't necessarily send CVs out of the door, but it's about using somebody that has a really strong skill set in a specific niche area, approaching people that you believe would see value in that, and having a conversation with them around, do you think somebody like this is going to add value to your team? And a good test is if you get a lot of yeses, and if you get fast responses, you're probably in an earlier market. So when I started in regulatory, in medical devices, it was at the time when a lot of life science recruiters just did life sciences. So they would do pharma, they would do chemistry, they would do biology, biotech, they do medtech, and they blend it all together. So I just said, I do medtech, that's all we do. And the responses that I was getting when I was doing my initial outreach, when I had good candidates, was so fast, I knew that I had a really hot market. And so I look for those signs now when we look at emerging markets of, are we getting fast responses? Are people wanting to buy quickly? Because these give us indications that this is a good hot skill set to be in. So I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Nothing at all.
Okay.
That's it. That's how you do it.
What didn't work? Did you guys ever try looking into other niches, as you did start to do that, whether it's biz dev tactics of reaching out, you're just that kind of flopped a little bit, or just failed ventures and what you learned from it?
I already kind of gave mine.
Yeah, just a second, your point really, I think we've definitely been culprits of maybe doing a bit too much down the rabbit hole research instead of just doing. Theory will only get you so far in certain aspects, and I'm someone who loves to over-prepare and really try and understand those markets, but at the same time, I think I totally agree. You've just got to be in it and see what's working, what's getting those bites, and yeah, I think being agile enough just to kind of go, you know what, if you feel like you're not getting the responses in the area that you want, it's a case of there's nothing wrong with going, okay, this isn't working, what do we improve on? And, it's a tough thing to do because we're all results-driven people, right? And we all want to succeed and smash it out of the park. But, yeah, it's okay to have those failures in terms of, okay, this isn't quite working. What can we do to change that? Because that's going to put you on the path to success, really.
Okay.
I would add to that, and I was one of the other things that I would say, in reflecting back, that I would change is making decisions faster on things that aren't working, actually. So sometimes, maybe you really believe in a market or in a skill set, and you're like, I really think this is going to work. and you're giving it a go, and you're not seeing those buying signals, you're not seeing the kind of, what you were expecting to see. And I think I've been probably a culprit of just letting that run for too long, instead of just going, do you know what, Germany, yeah, good market, good deal values, but it's really hard to do business there. Let's look somewhere else, as an example. But we are still active in Germany, but you see what I mean? Like there are, sometimes you see like the big deal values and the big margins that you can charge, and you say, hey, we're going to go after that market. But actually the barriers to entry sometimes are actually quite high. So it's about understanding what your risk tolerance is, and how much cash you want to put behind it as well, and how long you want to give it. But when you get that feeling of, okay, this is not what I'm expecting, I would just pull the plug faster on it.
Yeah,
and
I know
pivot.
some people have looked at, they call it like exit criteria, so to speak, like set a timeline, set an amount, like I need to have this much pipeline by this date, these signals beforehand. With something like that, it sounds like you definitely recommend to try to like constrain that. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just trusting your instinct as well sometimes, right? I think if you've been doing it long enough and kind of you've got those signals, sometimes trust that gut to be able to go, it's okay if it's not working. Let's have that.
Okay. So, Hung, I want to poke at your current expertise and what you see. You see and learn so much across the entire industry as a whole. Just like, are you seeing any niches really just like blowing up right now, or trends and ones? Obviously, we all know like tech is kind of slowing down, but just anything around. We've mentioned different geos, different subspecialties. Anything that you're seeing that's of interest or of note?
I wish I could present like, here's the golden sea.
Yeah, right. I think everyone else does too.
That's true. The reality is, and this is quite a difficult one for us as recruiters, because we're always looking for markets where there's candidate shortage. That's where recruiters basically provide the value. But the areas where there is a talent shortage are in, if you like, the more unattractive areas to do a recruitment business. So for instance, nursing. Like, we've never been able to hire nurses for the last 20 years or so. Yes, there's a talent shortage, but not many people want to do recruitment in that business. Margins are too low, it's too hard work. So we've had like maybe 20 years of working in tech and finance, high growth businesses, high margin, lack of candidates, brilliant. Good timing for us. It's been sort of a good run for 2 decades or more, I would say. I would say good times are over. We're not in a situation where we're going to see that type of bounce back. 2 reasons why. Companies overall are going to get smaller. So the entire hyper-growth period, if you remember blitzscaling, that was a term like 5 or so years ago. It was like hire 1,000 engineers, let's keep going. There was never any end to the amount of engineers you could be hiring. That's gone. The investment is not going into those companies to hire engineers. And if you look at where VC investment is going, it is actually ticking up again after having collapsed over the last 18 months. The money is going into AI-based businesses. Now, what's particularly interesting with AI-based businesses is that money is not going into buying extra engineers, it's going into buying compute, right? So that's not a recruitment business. Basically, VC investment is going into buying computers, hardware, rather than buying engineers to build the hardware. So AI companies basically are not large companies in terms of headcount. So what does all that mean for us? It means that the hard yards are here. We just got to be very smart with regards to how efficient we've got to be. Looking at targeting particular industry sectors where there is a need for us. Cybersecurity, obviously. You can say AI if you want to get into that business. It's extremely difficult. But if you can get into there's a global shortfall of artificial intelligence skills, particularly at that elite level. And oftentimes people don't know how to recruit them because they're typically gone through the university and academic track. They've got a very light footprint compared to a software engineer. So your ability to convert that profile into someone who can work in a corporate space, I think, has value. What are the other areas? You can say green tech maybe, but if you look at the overall numbers of people that actually go into green tech in terms of the sort of percentage of employment, it's actually quite low. Maybe you can think about getting involved more in the offshoring game. I think, is it John? Or
yes.
Yeah, John mentioned something similar. So the global corporations, our customers, they're going through a huge productivity drive right now, a huge efficiency drive, which ultimately means distributing their talent base into different areas where they can do it cheaper. Now, for them to do that, they're going to need a lot of help. They can't just magically, spin up a function in Cape Town just like that. They're going to need someone to be able to make that bridge between us. So I think a lot of us in the UK provide that type of function where we could try and create a connection where there is a labour source where we think that actually companies are likely to push jobs there and potentially connect and be the bridge that way. So offshoring, I think, is going to be a big deal for the next couple of years.
Love that. All right, last question. Elena, this one's going to be for you. So you're moving into this new niche. I know you specifically really focused on your brand and marketing aspect of it versus just, pick up the phones and call. How have you leveraged that, or how have you incorporated that as part of your overall strategy in breaking into those?
It's been really, really important because it's like front and centre too. I mean, if you look at the way we brand, I'm a big believer in Gary Vee, if anyone knows Gary, at least in his older days, because now he's on like lifestyle stuff. But I really bought into this idea of run your business like a marketing agency, and that meant that even when we were just a couple of people, I had like a full-time marketeer that was like super experienced. And I'm not saying you need to go out and do that, but we were always positioning ourselves as like the talent management company in the space that we're in. And that's allowed us to leverage partnerships within our industry that build instant credibility. So instead of being at an event within my industry and being a recruiter like in the audience and trying to business develop with all the hiring managers, like I'm the person on the stage talking about talent trends for the industry. And as far as like then being able to leverage that into bigger business development opportunities, it really is a game changer for us, because then we're putting out industry leading reports, market surveys, global trend reports for our industry, to the point where some of these big multinational corporations are using that as the benchmark, and that's kind of like, from a brand perspective, that's really where you want to be. We've also got a podcast. So I've got an executive podcast where I only invite senior people into that podcast, and it's just them talking about themselves. It's a business development conversation, but it's a great way to open the door. It's a great way to get otherwise inaccessible people to spend time with you, especially if you've got a big following in an area, with people that they want to be in front of. And because the podcast was really successful, we had other people that were not quite executive level that wanted to get more involved. So we created another thing called Future Leader Series, which are kind of like director level leaders talking about their experiences. And we run those almost every other month as a LinkedIn Live. And we have people listening in, and we normally get a few hundred people that listen in and ask questions and stuff like that, which is usually pretty good for a live event. Another thing that we've done is there's a big regulation in my industry. I recruit regulatory people that like to talk about the regulation. I just created a LinkedIn group and put everyone in it. And so now we've got like 13,000 people in this group. You have to be approved to go in, but it's allowed me to use that for leverage for specific things I want in the industry, because now if a company wants to market to that audience and have access to that audience, then there needs to be there's an opportunity to do some sort of deal there, depending on how we want that to look. So I really, really believe if you can, in your niche, become the thought leader, or at least the agency that has the data. And as recruitment businesses, we have so much data. We have so much data that we can, if we could just repackage it and put it out, I think there's so much value in that for our audience. And so I'm a big believer in brands, obviously, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, no, that was phenomenal. It's such a good point. So anything else either of you two want to add to that?
I was just going to second that. Recently, we've actually partnered with a marketing agency to help us. I think before we had kind of the mindset, why do we need marketing? We're doing all right, and we're growing that, but we really underestimated the value of that and helping get our name out there. And a lot of startup businesses that we work with, I'm talking to the CEOs, and I was just like, just out of interest, what was the kind of first thing you really focused on when you started the business? And a lot of them were like, brand, marketing, get your story right, get everything, really be the thought leader in that space. And for us, having gone through that journey now, it's really helped. And don't get me wrong, we're still pretty early on. We haven't, we're starting to generate things like podcasts and go to events and stuff like that. But yeah, would highly recommend, and definitely second what you say.
Hung, you know a thing or two about podcasting and groups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer. I mean, ultimately, what I'm doing now is basically entirely based on this style of approach. By the way, the origin story of this happening was me trying to hustle more business. And the podcast technique is really quite effective, exactly as you say. Because there's a lot of people out there that you're never going to get on a cold call. I mean, they're never going to respond to an email for business, but they might attend a podcast or an event or do something you're doing. Because everyone likes to be heard, everyone likes to listen to their own voice, particularly very senior people.
Yeah.
So these are useful techniques. The challenge I think we have, and I had a chat with Dave earlier in the room on this, is that I think everyone agrees this is a good idea. The question is, how do you operationalize good ideas? Because as recruitment agencies, we're always hyper busy. We're busy if we've got work because we're delivering candidates, we're busy if we haven't got work because we're trying to hustle more leads. It's a big challenge for recruitment business owners to think, how do I create new space in my team in order for them to do this longer burn marketing? Because it's not going to immediately turn around for you. We're driven by this idea that every month we've got a target, we've got to do 2 deals, 3 deals, whatever. We kind of enforce that culturally in our business. However, if you want to go down this route, you've got to think, okay, where's the bandwidth going to come from in order for me to do that? Is it you? If it's you, then great, you can control that, but it means a lot of stuff you're not going to do. You can't do a lot of recruitment. If you want your team to do it, you kind of got to accept they're not going to deliver to the absolute 100% that you want. So you either get a specialist in from the outside as a permanent employee. Recruitment agencies hate doing that because we see that as a cost center. So there's a cultural barrier we've got to get over. Or you've got to empower your current staff and give them the license to do this, and give them a little bit more bandwidth to do. Again, very difficult to do market conditions like this. Yeah. That's a business owner challenge. So as leaders of a recruitment agency, you've got to choose whether you want to go down this route and understand that comes with a trade-off.
I have 2 comments as well to add to that. So 2 things I would say. So one thing about the pods. So if you have a podcast, to your point, you get the opportunity to offer a platform to really senior people that you really want to do business with. But ultimately, it doesn't actually matter if you convert them as a client. That's what I've learned from this pod, right? So there's some companies, I managed to get like the chief quality officer of Philips onto my podcast. Everybody thinks we work with Philips. We definitely don't work with Philips. Like it's, they are impossible to work with. The rates are really low, and they're a massive, massive organisation. But what matters is that the chief quality officer of Philips was on the podcast, and that's where the value is in being able to leverage the people. So it is about operationalising it. But I think sometimes people get too focused on what ROI is that one episode driving for me, and how do I turn that one person into a client? But actually, they're not thinking about the amplification of that person, their reach, their network, and all the other people that are seeing it just because that person's been on the pods. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was about the team, because there's different schools of thought on this. But when it comes to brands, I think, is everyone in here a business owner? Yeah, I think you need to think about how much license you want to give to your team to go and do this brand stuff, because we're growing right now. I'm recruiting people into my company, and I'm finding right now that a lot of recruiters want to do brands, build my personal brand, and build a following on LinkedIn, and that's like the new thing that everybody wants to do when they go into a recruitment agency. There is space for that, but if you empower every single person in your company to do that, you're going to end up with a lot of egos in your company very quickly. And ultimately, I wonder a little bit about then the longevity of when you build celebrities in your company, how scalable is that long term, and what's the impact if one of those people walks away? So I think you need to just have like a clear strategy on like where the limits are, what you want them to do, what you don't want them to do, and give them space to build that brand within kind of a bit of a remit that you create for them. So
yeah, great one. All right, let's open up for Q&A for the panel. Anyone have specific questions that they want to get into a little bit more with this?
We've sent everyone to sleep.
I've got a question. So I know we talked about AI business traditionally not having loads of folks working within them because they're obviously building products and stuff. Do you think that there'll be a demand for AI literate people within businesses globally? And like, what would that look like? What are we talking about? Like, I don't think we're talking about the elite of the elite PhD folks, but who will those people likely be? And is there going to be a demand for that? What should we be building network-wise to maybe be able to jump on that as a niche?
Do you think that? I really believe in that, but I see that more as I don't know if I see that as a specific recruitment market, but I see that as just being successful in life in the future, almost like being able to speak English, right, in an English-speaking environment. In my team, I've said to everybody, figure out how you can use AI to do your job better, faster, more efficiently. And I think that every single job is going to need to use AI as part of their daily business. So I see that as like a broader skill that everybody, to stay relevant, is going to need to acquire, and that businesses are going to need to have people focused on that in almost every department. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it'd be very similar to how the first wave of digitization hit. Where everyone was saying we need digitally literate people, we need people who are fluent with the internet, with search and Google and all that stuff. You're right. It was never a market. There was never a recruitment market to say I'm going to hire a good Googler. You just hired people that actually were fluent with the technology, and I think with AI we'll have a similar play. It's definite push from a corporate side to hire more AI literate people, and actually a push to hire people who've got very good skills acquisition. So there's two terms that are happening in corporate world there for agencies that do well to pay attention to, because this is the sort of stuff that's switching on your customers. Number one, skills-based hiring. So people have heard about skills-based hiring before. This is the concept of, look, the experience is less important these days. Actually, what we're really looking for is the ability to do this, and this, or the ability to acquire the skills quickly to be able to do A, B, C. The second thing that corporates are getting into is something called talent density, which is can we get more skills in the business per capita, which essentially means, okay, if I've got one person that can do 10 things, that's going to be equivalent to getting 2 people that can do 5 of those things. So how do we get that type of person? Now, I think if recruitment agencies can kind of understand that this is where the demand is coming from the corporate side, vaguely moving in that direction is going to help in some way. But with regards to separation of market, I think you're right, it's going to be pretty much integrated.
Yeah, I was just going to say one area that we have seen pick up, and as you rightly said, trying to find fully illiterate AI people is quite difficult, but machine learning, for example, is something that, okay, not exactly the same, but very close to. There's going to be people that transfer into that naturally, that especially within the data space, so data visualization, data engineers and data scientists, we're seeing a lot more of those are starting to have that real interest in acquiring those sort of AI skills. So that's also a market to keep an eye on. So
how can the agency world cater for this? As you mentioned, the skills-based economy. I've got 2 questions. One, for the room as well. Personally, I feel the skills-based argument is one that's been driven by a couple of very big companies in the world who need to make a marketing gesture to create differentiation. So the Alexander Mann Solutions, the LinkedIns, the Cloaks are all driving this skills-based recruitment. So the first question is this marketing blitz? And then the second question, if it is a marketing blitz and actually there is value in this skills-based recruitment, how do agencies market or change their businesses to align with corporates wanting to buy skills-based candidates based on adjacent skills versus what they've written in their CV? Mumbo jumbo skills.
Yeah, I think really sharp observation. I have a lot of sympathy with the idea that it's kind of like a concocted thing, and generally speaking, most concepts are artificially engineered to create sort of consultancies sort of work. In this case, come on, we all know the truth of that. However, in this case, I think it's real simply because LinkedIn are bought into it. And I've been to a lot of LinkedIn events, and they're just banging on about skills-based hiring all the time. And it's very clear they're building the next generation of how LinkedIn looks will be pretty much more skills-based than it is experience-based. I think right now LinkedIn is pretty much all experience, right? If a student typically struggles to build a LinkedIn profile, and there's not enough experience to put in there. Now imagine a world where LinkedIn is decided actually we're going to go more skills-based on that. Suddenly it looks different. Now why does this matter? It matters because tools change behavior, and I think LinkedIn has the power to change corporate behavior because everyone uses it. And we're going to remember it's wrapped up with Microsoft. They're going to roll it out into us. We're going to be using it. Our behavior will change as a result of it. So yes, it's marketing, but the marketing is going to turn into reality. How do we compete? Honestly, we don't know, because we've always traded on experience, right? We've always said this guy's got 10 years experience, is amazing. So I don't know how we deal with that world where skills-based hiring is a prominent thing. Do we add some way to assess the skills in some way? Maybe, but honestly, don't know.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. Oh, sorry, thank you. Yeah, I was ditto that as well. I was just trying to think around in terms of how we actually deal with that. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure, and I think it's going to be interesting over the next couple of years to see how that kind of unfolds. And again, I think it's just about trying to be adaptable as possible, with that change as well, to see, how we can react and best apply to that, really.
I think what I've seen is, so skills-based hiring, yes, but still within a niche, I think, anyway. Like, there are some roles where, you've got great cross-transferable skills, great, but you still need to kind of know what you're doing. But where I've seen it used in my industry is more like, are you good at problem solving? Can you learn something quickly and apply it within the niche of regulatory and quality that we specialise in? And so some companies have started, not recruitment companies, but actually end clients, have started building case studies into their recruitment process. And we've started to help with that. So actually, rather than just, hey, talk to me about your experience, it's more like, okay, your recruitment process might have an element where they go in and then they're actually tested on these skills things, right? So then it's like, what are the skills that you want to test for? How do you want to test? And I think we've got a place as a consultative partner to help companies structure what that might look like and help them score what good looks like, and advise other companies that actually now this is becoming industry standard, why don't you start to incorporate that? So I think that would be our role to play, and I think that's where we could compete. But that's just, high level.
But personally, I feel that actually, it's sort of a trick question, it actually plays to agencies more so than it does to corporate recruiters, because agencies are supposed to know the human and not the CV. The ATS knows the CV experience, and using ML, it can ratify a CV quickly to determine whether or not they have the right experience. But a recruiter who's actually interviewed someone and known them for 5 or 6 years, for me, it's just a misnomer that these big companies are selling. Because in fact, if I'm a headhunter, and I was for 10 years, the number one candidate is the holy grail. Got everything, got the right experience, got the right skills, wants the same money, just wants to move company for a different life. The number two candidate's always the one that hasn't done the exact right thing, but they've got the right skills. So I just don't get it. I think recruiters who run agencies have always dealt in skills-based recruitment for the number 2 and number 3 candidate, the shortlist, because invariably they don't have a stock of unicorns. So I think actually it would then lead itself to an age-old problem. How do you attribute candidates when you interview them on your system? Which then comes to, how does Loxo, how do the other businesses attribute candidates to skills and not just experience? And me, 30 years ago, I was getting a piece of paper after an interview, and on the back of the piece of paper was candidate attributes, I think we call them. And it was accountant, yes. Salesperson, yes. Will relocate, yes. Go into this machine and spat out something. It's no different. It's just much easier now.
I love that. By the way, if anybody here is also a critic of skills-based hiring, I'll be interviewing Johnny Campbell, who is a fellow skills-based hiring critic on Breakthrough Live in about a month's time, and we're going to try and really, I won't say destroy it, but there's a lot of problems that you've identified. You want in on it?
I'll ring Johnny.
Yeah.
I'll go call you on, but I'm in on that. We'll text Johnny now.
I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll bring you on the screen, because I think we need your passion on there. Close the show, that'll be the mic drop moment. I think someone had their hand, didn't they?
Yeah, just on the back of the skills-based hiring, like businesses in their headspace, and I've been recruiting for 30 years, and I think the cultural side of it is far more important. People in my arena and they're reworking, and I've worked out on the way down here in Australia is that they tick every box on the skills that they do not fit culturally. So skills-based skills to a certain level, particularly the more corporate hire where it's not so much about the corporate than the cultural fit. So they need to generally workish. Cultural fit is, I would say, more important skill because they create spirit of companies on it. Yes. And that's why tech led to brand, because you can't provide
That's a very powerful argument.
I will say there's one group who I believe has been doing this for a while. If you ever look at transitioning military veterans and the recruiters that work with them, they have to help take the skills that they learned, elite athletes, same type of thing, and transition that to the working world. So I don't know if there's anyone here that's worked with them, but I think that's a group that, how have you found something like that translates?
I found my husband straight like in military, and I based in Oxford. We have a lot of corrections there, so it's been quite good. But I think it takes a good base of understanding when they go through the redeployment coming out of the military, because they're not what showing of being at university means they hiring these firms that go in and help them. I don't know who they are, but they're not very good because Brady still reads presently John in the military, so for us really it just makes any sense whatsoever. And so we've worked extensively with recruiting, even change their job titles to reflect his job titles, so it makes more sense to him more. But they do fit. Some companies they don't fit into all of them. Yeah. So again, it's about learning your own client, and it's about how they can stimulate into and move into.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, panelists, thank you for joining for this first one. This was a fun one.